This is a Rogue Media Network podcast.
Welcome to the Fee for Service Dentist podcast. I have a great conversation for you today with Dr. Josh Bernstein and his lovely wife, Allison. We're going to talk about some of the trends and the things that are going on in dentistry where it seems that business is being put first and the dental care second as the focus of treatment planning as well as treatment presentation. And we don't know the answer, but it sure has a major impact on what dentists are viewed in society in terms of trust levels. We've plummeted. We went from 1 or 2 on the scale down to, I think we dropped out of the top 10. You're really going to enjoy this. Josh is a wonderful guy and his wife, Allison, is peach. So good stuff. As always, our podcast brought to you by Kettenbach Dental. Kettenbach is very excited to announce the first major advancement in fluoride varnish. No longer with alcohol or resin. It's now delivered in a muco-adhesive dimethicone gel. So it's very lubricious, silky, and smooth. No more grit feeling when you're done. Contact Kettenbach today for more details and do more varnishes patients will appreciate. 877-532-2123 or visit KettenbachUSA.com. Talk to Dan Perilli. Tell him hello from Sunny. All right. If you like the show, please click like, share, subscribe, share it with your friends. That's how we grow. That's how we get this information out to more people. If you don't like it or you want and you got suggestions, well, contact me, please. sunnyspirit@gmail.com or 607-624-2962. Thanks, everybody. Enjoy the show.
My name is Drew Burns, and I'm a part of a small group of dentists who believe something crazy. We believe that the standard of care is just not good enough. We demand the best of ourselves and the best for our patients. We believe that the best way? No, the only way to practice dentistry is on our own terms. If you ask the dental consultants or the corporate CEOs, they tell you that what we're doing isn't smart, that fee-for-service dentistry is dead, and that the golden age of dentistry is over. Yet, while others focus on profits first, we focus on the patient first. And yet our offices are some of the most profitable in the entire country because we invest in ourselves and we are doing things right. It's our name on the door and it's our reputation on the line. My name is Drew Burns and I am a fee-for-service dentist. This is the Fee-for-Service Dentist podcast and these are our stories.
Welcome to the Fee-for-Service Dentist podcast. Dr. Sunny Spira today. We welcome old friends, and I really feel very comfortable when I'm talking and being around old friends. So let me introduce you. I'm going to meet Josh Bernstein, dentist, and his lovely wife, Allison. They're a team. They come in pairs. It's a twofer today. Twofer. 2-for-1 special. So let me give you a little background on Josh, then I'll have him describe his practice a little bit. Most of you that know Josh and Allison know that they're very giving. And anytime somebody needs a hand, has questions, you want to call them, they will respond. They'll spend the time with you because they believe in the betterment of our profession, as many of us do. And it's an honor to call him a friend and her a friend. They'll give you the professional. I'm going to try to give you a condensed version because Josh is quite accomplished. He is a graduate of the 1985 graduate of the University of Pacific Dugoni School of Dentistry. He went to the University of Southern California, got his IV Parenteral Moderate Sedation license in 2014, and he's a graduate of UCal Berkeley, 1979, Environmental Studies and Biological Sciences. Present, he is in a private practice in Piedmont, Oakland, Berkeley, California. He was an associate in private practice with Alan Hyman in 1985-86. So as you were an associate, I was in my first year in dental school. And then he was an associate as well with Huntley Johns in Berkeley, California. So he's done that and he's been on his own since. He is a graduate and instructor from the LVI Institute. We were just talking about that. He spent the better part of 10 years there. He's given multiple lectures and written multiple articles. In fact, you can see his articles now in dental economics. And he has no problem writing what he believes, and I absolutely love him for it. So welcome, Josh and Allison. How y'all doing?
Good.
early in the morning out on the California coast. Appreciate that. Did you have your coffee?
Yeah,
Yes.
still drinking it.
Still.
All right. God knows I'm not a coffee drinker. I was a coffee drinker. My wife couldn't live with me. I would be worse than I am. So,
Well, I'm on decaf.
yeah, there you go. Yeah, that'd be the only way she would allow me to touch that. That's for sure. All right. So today we're going to talk about the business. We'll say the business side, and we'll talk about the healthcare side and how it seems to be that things have become bass backwards in what's happening. And we want to kind of just talk about where we think it is and it's going, and try to put our fingers on it and get our arms around it maybe a little bit. But I want to start with first, Josh, just give people, and Allison, please give a little background of your type of practice, your delivery. I think it's an awesome way to practice. Why don't you just share with everybody may be hearing you for the first time?
Well, we have a practice that is entirely fee for service, out of network, and we have 0 accounts receivable. So in order to accomplish that, we have to provide really great customer service and niche services and take very good care of people, because, when you're in the out of network area, you can't rely upon volumes of patients coming to you from some insurance list. You have to take care of them, so they'll refer. You have to take care of your referring dentist's patients, so that they'll continue to refer to you as well. So our practice is focused on 3 areas: sedation, cosmetic dentistry, particularly porcelain veneers, and we do a lot of clear aligner orthodontics with Invisalign. That's not to say that those are the only things that we do, but those are the things that we focus on and market for.
Now, you said you don't have to see, and you don't see a ton of patients. What does average month new patient look like for you? How many?
Average month new patient, I don't know, maybe 10.
10. Okay. And your average work week, you're working how many days yourself?
I'm seeing patients in the office on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday these days. That doesn't mean that I don't go in there, on other days. I do, but those are the scheduled days. If we have an emergency, or if I have to take care of, one of our A+ patients, I'm going in,
Right.
as anyone would do if they have their own office.
But if you were to read, right, the average posting on the average Facebook dental group, they would say 10 patients a month is, you cannot survive on 10 new patients a month. Right. And this kind of leads in a little bit to what we're going to, I think, talk about today is, and we were talking a little bit before we started recording, like the I don't know, fear of missing out, or this weird kind of vibe pressure that this is what you have to be, or else you're inferior or you're lesser than, right? Talk a little bit about how you handle some of that.
Well, I'm going to let Allison answer some of this, because she's the one who takes the new patient calls. But we literally chase some of these people away on purpose. And I'm trying to be funny here, but we don't want everyone to come to our office. We would be inundated with patients that don't necessarily belong in our office. So Allison screens them heavily on the phone, and I'll let Allison tell you a little bit about that right now.
Well, so screening, if we can't help them, we send them somewhere else. So it's not, we're not just screening for our benefit. I spend a lot of time, even with patients that we aren't going to see, trying to find a place for them. We literally have a list of other dentists who, take insurance, like dentists that we like, we know the practice, we know something about them. We get a lot of calls for Medi-Cal patients. We don't take Medi-Cal or Denti-Cal, but we can help them find someone who can do that. So it really wouldn't make any sense. Like if every day when we answered the phone and got all of the patients in who called the office, we'd be working 7 days a week round the clock to see all of those patients. But it wouldn't be beneficial to them, number one, because some of these patients, if they're really insurance dependent, or just services that we don't really provide, we'd be wasting their time too. I mean, there's nothing worse. You get a patient in and you go through the process and then they're just stunned, that you don't take my insurance or I have to pay for this today. So you're not doing them any favors, by, well, at least for our practice, we're not doing them any favors by getting them in, wasting their time truly, and wasting, Josh's time, or Josh now has an associate, Dr. Tran, wasting her time.
Mhm.
So I know it sounds crazy, 10 patients a month, but if we've gone through the process of screening them the right way and they understand what we're doing and we understand what they need, 10 patients for us, is 10 new patients anyway,
Mhm.
is great. It's usually comprehensive care that we're doing.
Right.
It's typically not just like I need a filling,
Yeah.
So
Well, I think it's important. But it's almost the mindset. I don't know. Maybe I asked the question poorly. Uh, if you were like to just go out and look and read and say, okay, how can I kind of improve our practice? And you'd see these things, and like I said, the practice guru is well, for a solo practitioner to survive, they have a minimum of 25 to 30 new patients per month, and these numbers are thrown out. And I know that it's odd. I mean, I spoke to a dentist yesterday who just started a fee-for-service practice from scratch in a pretty busy area. And we kind of talked a little bit about that, and it's finding the right patients. But how do you deal with, just either of you can answer this, how do you deal with that? Do you ignore it? Does that not bug you? How do you deal with the perceived norm and what you guys is the norm for your practice?
So I don't think, honestly, I don't think either one of us are paying attention to this idea that you have to have, like all of these patients to survive. Well, number one, because it's not true. I mean, in our experience, it's not true.
Mhm.
But also, what kind of life are you setting yourself up for if you're just so focused on, well, wait a minute,
Right.
we're only getting 10 patients a month. They said we need 30.
Yeah.
What are we going to do? I mean, you're setting yourself up for just anxiety and stress. And what about the 10 patients that you do have coming in? What about just focusing on, providing the absolute best possible experience for them, so you can do some great dentistry for them? And if you've built that relationship with them and the trust, and they like the experience, who wants to come in 10 times for 10 crowns?
Mhm.
If they like you, sorry, they'll sorry about the dog barking. They'll do the dentistry with you. It's a different approach. I can't imagine every day worrying about
Mhm.
that everyone else is getting 30 new patients a month and we're only getting 10 patients a month. I don't know how that will serve us.
Right.
Our
Unless
office is
go
kind
ahead.
of like the Marine Corps in that way. We're looking for a few good patients. And with those patients, we'd like to do the very best that we can for them. And I think that's why patients come to see us who know anything about our office.
Mhm.
Well, and
Well,
also,
what would be your advice to that practitioner who's struggling with external pressures or external goals? And we're going to get into the business versus care part, because I think what you're talking about and what your focus is, it always comes from the care that you're providing. I mean, it just comes out of your pores, right?
My advice would be to stop taking social media so seriously. There's a lot of nonsense going on out there, and
What if they hire a consultant and the consultant tells them the same thing?
I know.
Right? What would you say? I mean, because you have to have a certain amount of confidence and self-esteem of what's right for you, of your practice. Like, were you always this way, or how did you come to that point where you're so self-sure, this is the way I'm doing things?
Well, I think in the beginning, we used to be an insurance office and we had a high volume practice. And it kind of happened, when we dropped insurance and made a few mistakes, our volume went down. And what we discovered is that, if we had the right patients, we were able to do just as well with a few patients.
Mm-hmm.
Also, if you know anything about me, I'm not some used car salesman. I come from a family of physicians, and my dad was older. Also, he was nearly 50 when I came along, and so it was all about delivering high quality healthcare. And I think the whole idea of dentistry as a business has gotten a little bit warped,
Mm-hmm.
and the pendulum has swung a little too far in a direction that I'm not particularly fond of, frankly. I think there was a time when dentists used to underdiagnose treatment. They'd be, see a failing amalgam filling or something, and oh my God, what's this patient going to say if I tell them that they need to do a new filling, or God forbid they need a crown? What if they reject my treatment recommendations? But I think the pendulum has swung a little bit too far in the other directions, particularly from production-driven practices like DSOs.
Production goals.
Production goals is a bit of a problem, in my opinion.
Right. Well, that goes to the same other thing too, like new patient goals, right? So if you're looking at this as your goal versus how many patients did we have, and was our, did we provide great care? Were we busy enough and earning enough? I mean, like.
But think about production goals. It's kind of scary. I know people have production goals. Honestly, we have never had production goals, I don't think, in the entire time
we've
you've been
never done
practicing.
it.
And every consultant in the world, I think, says you have to have
Right.
production goals. But think about that, really, what that's setting you up for, and your patients, what it's setting you up for.
You're putting the cart before the horse. I think we both agree.
Yeah, and building a practice is also a long game. It's not production goals. If we have a production goal, that's going to change everything for our practice. I think production goals are like anxiety producing, and also it's a little sketchy, I think, because now we've got production goals. So what are we doing? Are we drumming up business to meet those production goals? Production goals concern me for the profession. That's the issue that I have with production goals.
I mean, we all know that dental practice is technically a business.
Excuse me 1 second.
Okay.
Excuse me 1 second.
Allison's going to go deal with the dog, I think.
Okay, keep going.
We all know that dentistry is technically a business, a small business, but it's a special kind of small business. We're in the healthcare profession, and I think that our primary focus should be on taking care of the patient, dealing with the chief complaint, discovering what healthcare problems the patient has, and helping the patient understand what it is they need to do, if anything, to take care of their health.
Mm-hmm. Well, let's talk about a couple different models. I was thinking about this last night. You have the practice that, we'll take the example of what you said, failing amalgams, et cetera, et cetera. They're the type of practice that treats it after it's been broken, after it becomes symptomatic. Like, if it ain't broke, don't fix it, so to speak, mentality. And then you'll have the other practice who maybe is a hybrid. They're okay if the patient, that's their mentality or where they're at, but they're talking to them about what they can do to fix things proactively, showing them the stages of dental disease and do they want to address it here and now. And then there's the other practice, which we'll just say the script is flipped, that it's focused on, you need to have 10 crowns done by the end of the day. So the business aspect drives the diagnostic aspect, right? But I think the first two are very common, and I think both can exist in our profession and without judging,
Well, I think it varies patient to patient also.
100%.
On our new patient forms, we literally ask patients, when would they like to initiate treatment? When something is broken, when something is, when something is hurting, or when something is not ideal.
Mhm.
And, from patient to patient, that can vary. I treat different patients differently. Not that I don't inform them about what's going on, I do. But I can show two different patients the same dental problem, and one will want to fix it, and one will say, "Oh, it's not bothering me. Let's leave it alone."
Right.
There's the other kind of practice too, where what about you're the practice where patients, they're asking you for something. I'd like to do this, or what's going on with that? What about that practice where they come to you with an issue, you really focus on that particular issue. They're asking you, they're coming to you with the issue instead of, you know, I don't know, instead of every time someone comes in for cleaning, you diagnose, like you said, the 10 crowns and we should do them today. There's a lot of dental work out there and patients will come to you when they need some work. There's that kind of practice too.
And you were asking us, to describe our practice a little bit. We have focused our marketing so that patients come to us and they do ask for porcelain veneers, and they do ask for a clear aligner orthodontics, and they do ask for sedation. And we're here to help them with that. We're not necessarily, of course, patients come through hygiene and we find problems, but that's not what's driving our practice.
Mm-hmm.
What's driving our practice is people coming to us with these specific problems and asking us to fix it instead of us telling them that they need to fix it.
Mm-hmm. Let me ask you a question going back to the phone call situation, because you mentioned it, you marketing, you're looking for certain types of patients. So you're going to drive and you're going to create phone calls or web hits or text, however, communication from the general public to your office. They want to seek dental care there. So you're going to get tire kickers. You're going to get people who seriously are in that full. On average, now this is an unscientific answer. How many calls do you get that are prospective new patients? So if you get 10 prospective new patients, is that like 1 or 2 become patients? Just kind of give us a feel for the number or the ratio there.
Well, so I think if you're asking of those 10 new patients that come in.
No, the ones that call, the ones that you've created, a intrigue about your office.
Mhm.
So they're calling, and then that actually are, your type of patients.
Yeah, so
Just gut
so
feeling.
a month, my gosh, like if we get 10 new patients a month, I don't know, do we get 100 calls? That's probably realistic in a
So
month.
that's normal. So maybe 1 out of 10.
Yeah, I think that's probably realistic. We get a ton of calls,
Right.
and then there's those that come in. But the nice thing
Yeah.
is that of the 10 who actually walk through the door,
Yeah.
all of those become, they follow through with treatment. So
Right.
that's really the important part. Like even if you get 2 who come through the door, the important part is that they're going through with whatever it is they came, there to see you for. So
Well, you follow baseball, right?
baseball, no, I'm sorry.
Josh, no? Like,
Basketball.
let me just ask you a simple question. What would be a great batting average for a hitter in professional baseball? 300?
God, I have absolutely no idea. I'm
What
the
do you
wrong
think, Josh?
Josh
So,
might know.
above 300, I think.
All right, so we'll say 300. So that means 7 out of 10 times they didn't get a base hit.
Yeah.
So baseball is really a game of failure.
Yeah.
Right? But it's very unusual. And what I hear and what people should be hearing is not everybody comes in, and you're going to deal with, quote, either rejection or not acceptance. And for some people, they can't handle those numbers,
That's
They
tough.
take it very
But
personal.
bear in mind that, by the time they get finished on the phone with Allison, they know, first of all, it's what it's going to cost to do a new patient consult. They know what it's going to cost to do a porcelain veneer.
Mm-hmm.
They know what it's going to cost to do an implant. They know what it's going to cost. and they know that Allison is super nice. They come in to see Allison. You know, I'm just doing the
Yeah,
work.
she's the meat and potatoes. You're the
It
chocolate
is.
cake.
I mean,
It's not
They-
true though. So yes, it's important to have somebody who can handle new patient calls, but you know, the consultations that Josh does are really phenomenal. There's always the option of not doing any treatment. I'm telling you, if there's one thing I wish dentists would do, just one thing, is to stop trying to sell dentistry to patients in that creepy,
Mhm.
salesy kind of way. They'll do the dentistry if you just you can offer it to them, you can present it as an option, just be nice, make them feel great. They'll do it. They'll come back and do it with you.
Now
You know,
you guys have you guys have put together a series of videos,
Yeah.
right? A whole curriculum on some of these things. And I know we talked and we did a whole show on the new patient exam and process. And I know you feel like that's a really essential point, right? So do you want to talk a little bit about what you've got going with that stuff?
well, mostly Allison created this master class,
Mhm.
which we've changed. It used to be called Dental Suite 903. We changed it to Thrive Out of Network. But as part of that master class, one of the things we talk about is this whole sales business.
Mhm.
And I won't tell you that we don't do sales,
Mhm.
but the sales that we do is more professional. It's more healthcare oriented. It's very soft sell. We take the pressure off the patients. It's zero pressure. Our job is to let patients know that one of their options is they don't have to do anything as long as they know the risks. That's the first option that we present to everyone, the option to do nothing. Once you tell patients that, the pressure is off and they're much more amenable to listening to the other options. The most common thing that people say when I tell them, well, option one is to do nothing. The most common thing people say is, well, I can't do nothing. And after that, every other option is on the table for us to present to them.
I think it's when they start listening, really, because I think people walk into the dentist's office and they're like bracing for
Right.
the big number. They're bracing for it. So when you take it down and we're just here to talk about what's going on, what you came here to see me for. Then I think they can hear it, because then, oh, okay, so you're not going to make me do this today.
Right.
So then I think they actually start listening. That's what we see in our practice. I don't know.
You know what I get a lot when I give them your first choice is you could do nothing. They'll look at me like what? I'm like, it is a choice. I mean,
Of course.
understand, it is a choice.
Yeah.
Not by accident. You're choosing to do nothing, and it's okay with me. Like,
Yeah, sure.
I'm not going to hit you across the knuckles with a ruler. I mean, it's okay to choose not, but I don't think people think of it that way.
Yeah. Well,
And
I think
that's a powerful thing to put in someone's hands.
it really is. And I think there's just that. I mean, we all know there's that anxiety with a lot of dentists about, just like you said in the beginning, you have to have a certain amount of patients. Why are we not getting 30 new patients in a month, and why are we not meeting this production goal? It's so anxiety producing. I think dentists can't just focus on like the bird in the hand, which is the patient who did show up and they're there, and
Mhm.
take the time to give them your undivided attention. It's a beautiful thing to through a new patient consultation, then you convert someone into being a patient. Take the time and do it.
Mhm.
I think it really is just like the key to dental happiness in your practice is to put aside, put down the social media stuff. It's soul crushing. It's awful.
It can be.
It's
It really can be.
terrible. It's
And-
really bad. And also it's just it's BS. I mean, you're putting stuff out there, your best life, your best everything. Saw 5,000 patients this month. No one's doing that. No one is doing that. It's just nonsense. It is. It's crazy. It's crazy making.
I think the tagline for this message is production goals are counterproductive. People
It's
are
really
wondering,
true.
like, why aren't the new patients coming in? Maybe it's because they've got these production goals and the patients are feeling pressured. And they're going home and out to, see their friends afterward. How was the dentist? I don't know. I went in there for a cleaning, and next thing I know, they're trying to, shove 3 fillings in a crown and, a bunch of x-rays down my throat. And it's not a good message that's going out there with some offices, not every office, of course, but I think that, like I said, the message is production goals are counterproductive. Focus on taking good care of the patient. And people leave our office after these new patient consults. I haven't ever done any dental work on these people at all, and they tell me it's the best dentist visit they ever had.
So let's talk about
if I'm any good.
No, I believe it. I mean, it's thorough, it's patient focused and patient centered, which is, I think, part of the thing that we lose when we become business and dollar focused and dollar centric. It's really what's the core value, what's driving what we're doing, right? Like I always tell every doc in my practice, and now my partner that I've been practicing with for better part of 25 years now, he tells them all the same thing. He goes, listen, Sonny told me this the day I started, and I'm going to tell you the exact same thing. Take care of the patient. Everything else takes care of itself. Everything else.
True.
That's
It's
really true.
so true.
And it's just a basic tenet. And like our associate now, she's been with us 6 months, dynamic personality, wonderful person. I think a very good dentist. I don't know. I don't really look over her shoulder or watching anything, but I like the way she handles herself, and she's compassionate, and same things held true. Now, was she as busy as she was? Of course she wasn't when she started, but as she's building relationships, she's building foundation blocks, and she's seeing those patients, and she's seeing some referrals from those patients. Now she's pretty busy,
Yeah.
and in the end, she's doing very well, making a very comfortable living, and she's not jamming stuff, it's the relationship aspect first. So let's talk about the 2 different models. Let's talk about the business model versus, the dollars and cents business model versus we'll call it business by accident model, which is patient care model.
Right.
Right?
Well, just as an example, you and I were talking a little bit about same-day dentistry today. And I'm not opposed to same-day dentistry. We do same-day dentistry, and I know you do too. What I am opposed to is trying to pressure someone into doing it on the same day. If they come in for a hygiene appointment and you see some problems and you have a hole in your schedule, I think it's worthwhile to offer them that time if they want it. To try and pressure someone to taking that time because you have a production goal, I have a huge problem with that. So that's the difference. If you're doing it to take care of the patient, great. Everyone's going to feel good about that. If you're doing that to meet a production goal, I have a big problem.
Well, it comes down to what's intent, right? What's the intent?
Yeah.
Yeah, like I had a patient, and it was last Saturday. I was covering Saturday morning. Haven't done it in a while, but no one was available. So yeah, I'll go. And patient came in, and Saturday morning patients typically are very schedule specific. They have their work. They can't, because we're open typically 7 a.m. till 5 or 6. So we should be able to cover most people's schedule, or they travel, they're truckers, whatever the case. So we have a solid core Saturday patients. And he had a little buckle, filling needed to be done on 19. And I just said, listen, I know you travel, you come here. If it'll help you, I can take care of that filling today. Oh, I'd love that. Okay. It's going to be a couple minutes. I'm going to fit you in. Don't worry, we'll take care of it. It's going to take longer than it normally would, but I have no problem. We can get you done. We can start the process. Bear with me. We'll get it done.
That's the difference right there.
But that's because it's a service to the patient.
Right.
Because then they don't have to travel back and they're very busy. If it serves them, the patient, it makes a lot of sense. But we were actually talking about this morning, the whole thing about pressuring for
Yeah.
same-day dentistry. Not only is it just, it's too heavy on the patients, but also for the practice. Like, imagine if that's you're just grinding on that all day long, just get them in. I mean, you don't really have the time scheduled. Like you said, it's going to take you a little bit longer.
Mhm.
So you're living your work life constantly behind, constantly making patients wait, just fitting people in to do this work that happened probably because you pressured someone into doing it. So it's very hectic, it's chaotic. And I don't know if you're going to get that patient back again because that's not a great experience. They felt pressured and
Mhm.
then they felt like they were going through
Right.
like the spin cycle, because everybody's so busy, hurrying to get the work done versus you present them with some treatment options. They go home, they think about it, they schedule it. So you have enough time for them and they have a beautiful experience. You're not seeing we don't see multiple patients. Josh doesn't jump from chair to chair.
Mhm.
I know people do it. He used to do it, but it's a very different experience when you can plan things and see patients in a more relaxed,
Mhm.
scheduled kind of way. They're not stressed. You're not stressed. We all know how much everything costs. It's all set.
Mhm.
We're ready for you.
Yeah.
It's a different doing it that same day under pressure is different for everybody, the patient and the whole practice.
And in our practice, we do have quite a few sedation patients. So same day dentistry is off the table
Yeah.
for those kind of people.
Oh, sure. Yeah. Like here's an example. It just made me think of it. We had an associate with us who didn't work out, and he had some experience working at, let's say, a very high volume clinic style practice. And he wasn't there anymore. So I talked to him. I said, you got to understand there's a major difference in how we practice, and you're going to see it and you're going to feel it, blah, 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 blah. Right. Well, he would do a lot of same day dentistry. And then what he started doing with this, he had a full schedule. He would bring that patient over, and then he would become massively stressed. He would bark at the team, right? And he became, Sybil, right? A different personality came over him because when he was with the patients one-on-one, it got great feedback. Patients, oh, you're very good, very kind, very comfortable, But so he would create and drive this stress to himself. And I never could figure out why. Why are you doing this? And I don't know if it was cultural. I don't know if he felt like he had to. He had to be, just so this and that. I said, but it's causing us as an office, we're going to lose some staff, and I'm not going to lose any staff over this. So listen, you got to change it. We had multiple conversations. So finally, the last straw was, you can't work here anymore. But it was highly driven to the point where it was forcing it, and it would change his entire personality. So yeah, and now I'm thinking, looking back on it, that was probably one of the root causes.
Yeah. Stress is a powerful thing, it can
It's
change.
self-inflicted,
It changes the environment for sure. Like, look what it did to your employees, and
Yeah.
it just changes
Oh
everything.
yeah. He
It
would
doesn't
get
seem
right
like
up in their personal space, and I was like, what?
oh
That's
my
not
God.
acceptable. Like,
Oh,
No,
no
that
way.
would not work in our
No
office.
way.
yeah, no,
There's
it's
not a
just, it
single
doesn't work
person
for
in our
our office.
office who would tolerate that, but that's too bad. I mean, it's too bad for that dentist too,
Yeah.
that, you know,
But he wouldn't get the message. Like, so he doesn't belong practicing in this model. He belongs in
yeah,
the business first model,
Yeah.
where that's the most important thing to him, and patients that are going to want that, right?
yeah,
Like that's
I wanted to talk a little bit about one particular aspect of the business first model. We have seen a number of patients that have come to us from some of the DSOs, and I don't want to mention any names of any
you don't
DSO.
have to.
It's not necessary. But just as a couple examples, and we talked about this the other day, so I just want to kind of sort this out together. people come to see us for, they didn't have a good experience at the DSO. They were told they needed 4 quads of SRP.
Mhm.
They come in for a new patient exam. I'm doing a perio screening, and all I'm seeing is 2s and 3s with no bleeding. I don't know what's going on with that. I had another guy the other day who was told that he needed a crown on number 15. He had 2 small composite resin fillings on number 15. And, I'm a student of Ron Jackson. Ron Jackson believes in over-engineering second molars. And so I do too. But even in that case, this tooth did not need a crown. He said the dentist came in, barely looked at his tooth and said it needed a crown. And so these are just 2 examples of what's going on in the DSO world. And I just don't understand what's going on. Are they falsifying records? Are they over-diagnosing and letting the patient pick up the slack on the co-payment? I have no idea what's really going on there.
Well, if I mean, this is all going to be conjecture because I don't practice that model, but I would venture a guess to say, because I've had people review certain parts of our practice and stuff, and if they look and they say, you are doing, of your hygiene patients, you have 20% that are in perio, and the national average is 35%. You need to up your periodontal diagnosis and treatment. So if that comes from above, right? Now, what are you going to do? Like, you have to ask yourself as a dentist, hey, are you ethical enough to provide the right treatment, or are you pressured and feel that you have to compromise those ethics and basically misdiagnose and overdiagnose because you need to have a 35% periodontal patient number? I mean, that's just one suggestion.
Yeah, it's
seems,
troubling.
it seems really wrong. I don't know.
Right? It's past backwards.
That's a little scary. That's the whole sketchy part I was talking about it.
And there's so much work to be done. It just seems unnecessary to prescribe unnecessary treatment.
Well, it goes to your point though, right? Productive goals become unproductive. Now this is, guidelines. You're not doing enough root canals. I've heard this from a major chain, okay, that actually was born in Syracuse, New York. Won't take too hard to figure that one out. And the doctors have to prescribe. They have guidelines and quotas. The end of the month, if you've done 2 root canals, you should have done 8. If you've done 2 crowns, you should, whatever it is.
Yeah.
But
There's
what?
a
What is
system.
it based on? What if it's just not there? You can't.
Exactly. I as well as I do. You've been in practice enough, right? Some months, I'm doing a bunch of dentures. Just what the patients call for. 2 came in, it's what we're treating.
Yeah.
Some months, I'm doing a bunch of crown and bridge. Some months, I'm doing a bunch of, it's like, it seems to me like if you're doing endo, it rises and falls like the weirdest way. All of a sudden, geez, I did 5 root canals this week, all on tooth number 19 for whatever reason.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's the moon and the dogs are barking the right way. I have no idea what does it, but it just seems, to me. Now I have no data that states this. It just seems sometimes, and my assistants will comment all the time. Well, it's root canal week. These are the things that present, and
Yeah.
and I would
breathe sometimes.
Right? Yeah, I would be shocked. Like if I'm like, oh my God, what if I had this? It would be a real crappy way to practice dentistry. It would drive me to want to leave the profession.
Yeah.
I couldn't do it.
But I mean, that's a possible scenario. I mean, can you think of anything else?
I don't know what's going on. I think that you hit the nail on the head.
I think it's like we said, if you have production goals, these goals that you must meet in your mind, you must meet them.
Yeah, and just one more is here's your blend of services. You have to meet.
I don't know.
You have to meet the corporate blend of services, right?
I guess the question is like if you have a production goal and we're getting towards like the 20th or something and you haven't you're not even what happens? What do you do? That's the thing that keeps me awake at night,
Yeah,
right?
You drop the price on your root canal, so more
Right.
people want root canals.
yeah. Or the metric is you need to deliver so much dentistry per patient. So
Yeah.
each patient should be getting $1,200 worth of work, and this patient hasn't done anything in this amount of time. And they've got a treatment plan for that. You need to push that person to get that work done or something. I mean, I don't know. I'm sitting here. Unfortunately, I'm thinking like the devil here, trying to figure out what would be an evil kind of thing, but that would be justifiable from a profit and equity ownership standpoint.
But see, I think the devil is in that whole scenario because the one thing they're not taking into consideration, like you must prescribe this much, recommend this much dentistry on a patient. You must do X amount of root canals. The thing that's missing is what if the patients genuinely don't need any of that stuff? So there's the devil in your details. I mean, I don't know. I don't know who's recommending work that just doesn't need to be done. That, to me, that's the crux of the problem with production goals. When people get nervous because they have this goal, which it's self-inflicted. Where's this production goal coming
Right.
from?
How did we get here from,
Right.
dentist that was afraid to tell someone that they didn't need to replace their amalgam filling? It's like,
What?
there's got to be the happy medium here where we're not afraid to diagnose treatment that needs to be done, but we're not diagnosing treatment that doesn't need to be done. There's a happy medium, and it's not hard to identify.
Don't you think the public has spoken when we have dropped from a trusted profession number
Yes.
We were
down
talking
to
about this
number 10?
yesterday.
Yeah.
We used to be like the second most trusted profession or somewhere near there. And where are we now?
We're down. We're down like the 10th or something. Like we've dropped
Yeah.
off the top 10 list or something.
Yeah,
What
that's
was it? Us and pharmacists, right? Wasn't that 1 and 2?
pharmacists, the poor
Yeah.
pharmacists.
Or the clergy or something like that. One of our neighbors used to be the general counsel for Yelp.
Right.
And I know a lot of dentists hate Yelp, but they have statistics at Yelp. And the two most common complaints about dentists are on Yelp are the patient is being prescribed dentistry that the patient doesn't perceive to be necessary. That's a big one. And the other big one is not having adequate financial arrangements so that, the patient has some treatment done. They have no idea what it's going to cost. And then they just get a big fat bill in the mail.
Mm-hmm.
So
Those are the two
Those
complaints.
are just straight numbers from,
Right.
from actual complaints of patients. That's just from a guy looking at the numbers. But you don't have to like Yelp or hate
Right.
Yelp.
But if you take that, and that's the teaching point to me, the first point, the most important word in there, perceives.
Right.
The
Yeah.
patient doesn't perceive they need it. Now, it's not knocking dentists as over prescribing or poorly prescribing or et cetera. It may be you're just walking in saying this tooth needs that, see ya. And the patient is not involved in their own treatment planning.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Or they don't understand. Like we were talking about a cracked tooth the other day. A tooth, I just saw one, it was number 18. It was cracked distal margin ridge, mesial margin ridge, buccal and lingual. It was a perfect cross. Had an older occlusal amalgam, had some recurrent decay. On x-ray, probably the insurance company says we're not paying for a crown. You can fix the cavity, put the filling in. But when you look at it clinically, you say, oh, this tooth needs a crown every day plus Sunday. And they might lose this tooth because the crack may be that much worse, right? If that person doesn't see that, and you tell that person he needs a crown, and he goes and he talks to his neighbor who knows a dentist or is a cousin with a dentist or, swap spit with a dentist, and he looks and he goes, oh, that tooth doesn't need a crown, right? I mean, how many people do that? Well, you didn't see it. The patient didn't get any education and buy-in as to the benefits of watching, treating, et cetera. Like they didn't make the decision. It was just told that's what they should do. It's a completely different model.
Yeah, Allison's pointing out this is where camera's important. This is where your clinical photos really come in.
Mhm.
And we rely heavily on clinical photos. I just published an article in Dental Economics about clinical photos.
Yep, it was a great article. Yep.
Importance of clinical photos in building trust. Because I think what we're really talking about today is that people have lost trust in dentists. But the other thing is, as far as clinical, you can't just look at this crack. You have to get out your bite stick and try and find a symptom, so that the patient's like, oh yeah, it kind of hurts when I bite on that spot. It's been hurting there. It feels like aluminum foil or something like that. So we need to use the tools at our disposal. And I know you rely heavily on transillumination, another great tool.
Yeah, it's just an auxiliary, right? That,
Yeah,
the photo.
take photos, put it up on the flat screen in your operatory. Patients aren't stupid; they'll see it.
Take your iPhone out of your pocket. Take a picture with your damn iPhone.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And show it to the patient. Just put that. If you don't have all the technology, I know you got an iPhone or an Android. And I know you can easily take a picture and you can pop it up in front of them on your little 3x5 screen and zoom in, and patient, they can see that. And they're like, oh boy, what's that black thing? They engage in the conversation, or take out a scanner and scan it and show them what it looks like in scan,
We think it's one of the best ways is just to pump the brakes, take time, do like you said, even just with your iPhone. It's powerful. Expand it and show it to them. It's a great tool, and it's a great way to help patients understand what's going on.
But it's a tool, right? So now it's up to you as the doctor to provide the treatment plan and the benefit to the patient. What's the benefit to me?
Yeah.
Right? Because what's in it for me in the end? Right? Like you said, Josh, all people would choose all different things, right? But if you have a patient who doesn't like going to the dentist, cannot deal, like if they have a hangnail, it's as if someone cut their arm off, right? So they're on that end of the spectrum, right? So they would probably want to fix this before it's Christmas Eve and they broke that tooth and they've got an abscess or whatever the case, right? So knowing that personality, or I travel a lot, I'm out of the country a lot, I don't want to be in a spot where I can't get access to care. Okay, well, probably you want to prevent that from happening. Fix that before, right?
Yeah, there's also the other guy that will just say, well, I'll just wait till it breaks and then we'll take the tooth out.
Yeah.
You got those guys also, and it's their choice.
Right. And there's nothing wrong with them. Right? Like you can't judge. I think that's where you get in trouble, when you judge.
Yeah.
Yeah, and patients can feel that too. I think they can feel that judgment,
Well, that's the other big problem in dentistry. I didn't come up in the top 2 in Yelp, but patients. What was that article we read from the Atlantic recently, where the patient just felt completely judged when they went to the dentist. They're preaching to the choir. This patient has walked in the door for dental care, and they're getting all judged and made to feel guilty. It's wrong. It
was a funny piece in the Atlantic, but it was his actual experience. He just turned it into funny writing. But yeah, it's like, I'm here, I'm showing up. And then, he felt very deflated when he left.
The dentist is looking at him, tisk, tisk, tisk.
Yeah.
Like he didn't floss well enough or something like that. It's just, we gotta break these paradigms. We have a terrible reputation, and in many cases we deserve it.
Right. So let's go there, right? So if the paradigm is that we are sinking quickly on the public trust scale, and we have a lot of businesses now being owned by people who have no concern about the care, only the production and collection at the end of every day, and the profit that's going to their stakeholders, right?
Yeah, these outside people are influencing things. The insurance companies and the DSOs, they're influencing proper healthcare in a negative way.
So knowing that that's an undercurrent, what can we say or do to improve the dental stake or the dental status in
You can go
public.
back and start relying on some of the things you learned in dental school, in our comprehensive patient care classes. We learned to do a thorough exam and full mouth set of x-rays back then, and add in your clinical photos and your iTero scans and that kind of thing, and CBCTs if indicated. Get your patient on board with what's going on in their mouth, and then let them make the decision after you present the options. Don't try and shove something down their throat. It's their mouth.
But
Yeah, you have a really good point about dental schools.
I think it also goes back to what we first started talking about here, which is, the production goals and feeling pressure to have a certain, like all these numbers that get thrown out in the dental, consultant world. I don't know where they come from. I don't know. But I wish that dentists would just like do the experiment, like don't have a production goal this month for the next 6 months, and just really take care of the patients. Try not to do the sales, forget about the production goals. See how your practice feels, see how you feel, see what happens with your patients. I think these production goals and all these numbers are kind of the death of this practice that we're talking about, like getting back to having a better reputation and, having a more sane way to practice. I don't know how you can do that with all those pressury kinds of things.
Schedule more time for your clinical exams, whether it's a new patient exam or time spent doing a hygiene exam. Spend a little bit more time and foster those relationships with your patients. Get out a perio probe, get out your Explorer and your camera, and see what's going on with these people. They're coming to you because they trust you, and you need to maintain that trust. You can lose that trust easily. In 1 quick minute, you can lose that trust by prescribing dentistry that the patient doesn't perceive is necessary.
Right. It's interesting. Can you imagine if the dental school teaching model was, okay, today we're going to start talking about operative dentistry. Now, operative dentistry, we're going to be doing MOs and MODs and occlusals. Now, we're going to have each of you are expected to make and produce in the dental clinic at dental school at, let's say, a 50% fee of private practice. You're expected to bring in $600 a day when you're in the clinic. So now let's teach you on how to do fillings. Can you imagine if that's the way the education process went?
Yeah, it would be bad. It would be completely
really bad.
unethical.
It would be like, how can I do this faster? Well, see this decay? You don't always have to remove it. Well, see this retention form? It's a composite. It's going to stick no matter what.
And getting the patient numb, that's optional.
Yes, you know what? Sometimes they don't really need it. So, you just tell them, hang on.
We're almost finished.
Yeah, hold on. Buckle up.
Yeah. What a nightmare. What a scary thing to think about.
Right, but they're not taught that way. So in essence, like when we talk to people about joining our practice, we're like, we want you to practice a lot of the ways that you learned in dental school.
Yeah.
Right. And the way to do that is, one, have fair compensation for what you're doing. Right. So be out of network, and B, spend the time building the relationship with the patient. So there is some bond, there is some trust.
100%. I think it's the key.
Yeah. Is there any other things that you can think of with this, this little, I want to call it a detour, but this trend that we're starting to see?
There's a million things, isn't there? But maybe there's not. Maybe it does get down to just these few little things, that this trend, that people are really, where are these numbers coming from, by the way? I mean, these numbers, like the production goals and the number of new patients that where do these numbers come from?
Well, I believe some of it comes from like data collected. I know Roger Levin and the Levin, does a lot of data collection and the ADA, and I think they gather a lot of that. So I think that I hope that some of that's coming from actual data. Like I know that I've talked to different consultants and you know, in looking at purchase prices of practices, well, if you have 4 operatories, each operatory should produce X number of dollars. So, I mean, I know they have these statistics broken down to the penny. I would hope that it's from actual data from dental offices personally. Then I would feel
So
more comfortable.
are you saying for the dental practice sales, that's where they're coming up with the numbers like per operatory? Because then
No,
in that model,
yeah, no,
we're
I'm thinking that there's these yardsticks or these things that they come up with, I think are coming from data that they're collecting from I hope in the ADA. I know, like I said, Roger Levin, I know does a huge, they do a ton of research and statistics, and I don't know how you can get it from the IRS. I know the IRS is going to show you, you know, income based, and like you can look at dentists in your area and you can see, you know, income, you know, up income, median income. What are those 3 things?
yeah. I just
Maximum, median, and the mean, the median,
yeah.
and the max, right? Statistics, holy cow. But you'd have to, you know, kind of, you know, gauge that. And that would be some of it. But yeah, I've heard some of these things. I could be off in what I'm saying, but I've heard some
Yeah.
of these things mentioned.
I just wonder if it's about like the ultimate sale of your practice. So you have to have a certain numbers, you know, to be attractive for the ultimate sale of your practice,
Right,
which, you know, ignores the whole lifetime of your practice
right.
where you have to be practicing and going to work every day, which I don't know. I think that would be a more important thing to focus on than the value
Mhm.
of at some point in the future when and if you sell your practice, how that's
Well,
going to go down. I don't know. I'm
I,
just plain and simple. I'm not a fan of
right.
these numbers because I don't think it does any justice to the
Mhm.
patient. And I think it's crazy making for the poor dentists and their staff who have to have to jumble around in that. It's super stressful.
But I do think you're right. I think in practice valuations, because now you've got these corporates that are buying these practices, right? So I
Yeah.
think that they have a lot of data, like, okay, you're a 3 operatory practice, 1 doctor, 1 hygienist, you have 2 providers, your numbers should be here, and your profit level should be here in order for us to, you know, either buy or see value, or the EBITDA and the figuring and all this other stuff. Because if you take your practice and you say, okay, here's a practice for sale, has, I don't know, I'm going to make these things up. They have 2 operatories that's producing $2 million a year, and they have 10 new patients a month, and they don't do these services, right? So that would be someone buying the practice would look at that and say, well, okay, I do some of these services, I can add to it. I don't do some of the services that they're doing. So, and this number is low, so here's an opportunity. So they use these gauges on the purchasing side,
Mhm.
right? So a young dentist who would buy the practice, I know that's what I did. I looked at the practice I was going into. I saw what he was doing. I saw his numbers, his physical plant. And I said, oh, I could go in. I hope I can keep this close to what he's doing. I can add a couple of services he's not doing so that in the end I can pay my note, make a little bit of money and survive. You know, so I know I went through that myself at times. So maybe that's part of it.
Yeah.
Maybe. I think the most important services to add are customer service.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's a big part of what's missing in a lot of offices. And it's the easiest way to compete against these corporate entities and against the other offices where these people are coming from.
Mm-hmm.
It's with outstanding levels of customer service and really caring about the patients. So many times people come in to see us and they think they need mouthful of porcelain veneers. And I oftentimes will talk people out of porcelain veneers because it's not in their best interest. And I always go back to the Mayo Clinic quote, the best interest of the patient is the only interest to be considered.
Mm-hmm.
So, I think when you keep the patient's best interest in mind, when you keep their pocketbook in mind, the patients are going to be more loyal And those few patients that do come into your office are more likely to actually do the work that you do recommend. And everyone's going to be better off. The profession's going to be better off. Your practice is going to be better off. And most importantly, the patient's going to be better off.
Well, I think the most important thing, again, to me, is it's got to be your core belief. Has to be central and focused, because then everything you do is authentic.
Right.
You have
If
to
you're driven
believe.
by greed, that's you've got a problem.
Yeah, you have to believe it's the right thing to do.
Yeah.
Right. That's pretty cool.
But
All right.
maybe you can't change that in some dentists. Maybe their core, maybe they're driven just by the, how much money can we make?
Well, I get scared ethically.
I think my point is that
Yeah.
you're going to make more money if you don't focus on making more money.
Right.
Take
At
care of
the
the
end of the
patient.
day,
The
I
money
think
takes
that's
care of
true.
itself.
That's the counterintuitive message.
Right. I fully believe that.
It's true.
It's
But I
funny
think-
because when I did speak to the dental school, I had to look up some of the numbers so I was able to speak intelligently, because I don't look at them as often as I probably should, or I don't rely on them. It's really just a feel of, are we providing what we should be providing? Are patients happy? Are we satisfying our core values? Like, it sounds so like lovey-dovey rainbow hearts afloat, but it's really just a core value. Yeah, it's just a core center of who we are.
It really works. I just wish that, some practices, I know they don't believe it. They think that it doesn't, that's ridiculous. That's not, an effective, or a viable business model, but it really is. I don't know. I wish more people would just give it a shot and calm down a little bit and forget about the numbers for a few months and see where it goes. You'd just be amazed.
Good advice. Josh, anything you want to leave with some of our listeners?
Go check out thriveoutofnetwork.com.
Okay.
Allison,
Now they can also find you. You have a podcast. You guys do a podcast as well.
We do
right?
a podcast. We're on Apple Podcasts under Dental Suite 903.
Yes. Yeah.
Dental Suite 903, thriveoutofnetwork.com.
Thriveoutofnetwork.com.
New website. And they are going to be doing more and more things that are really helpful to provide that top level customer service, the new patient exam, the new patient phone call. I know that those are a couple topics that they're doing. And do you want to talk a little bit more about anything else that you're doing with that site?
All of those things that you mentioned, and just helping dentists to make that transition to get out of network. Because Allison and I don't really believe that belonging to insurance company networks is sustainable long term. And I don't think it's good for the profession either. I think dentists are having to increase their volume just to make a living, because the insurance companies aren't paying them a fair fee. So I think that people will find Thrive Out of Network pretty valuable for getting out. There's a lot of good information in there about how we succeeded in private practice after being in network for 15 years.
Right.
And we've been in network for nearly 25 years now.
Yeah, and it's a great story, folks. If you haven't heard Josh, when he decided, that's it, I've had enough. And then January 1st, we're dropping. And then you're like, oh boy, we didn't put our plan together right yet. So right. It's a great success story though, in the end. Right?
Yeah, I wouldn't go back. No way.
Everybody says that. I will say that. There's one common denominator of all the people I've talked to on this podcast. The only thing they say is one thing: I should have done this sooner.
Yeah. That's true. That's the thing.
But don't rush into it, because if you make mistakes, you could be in big trouble. Check out Thrive Out of Network, and you'll learn how to not make the mistakes.
There we go, folks. All right. So I'm going to have Josh's information in the show notes. And Allison, you can reach them. And believe me, if you do, they will speak to you and they will help you. I know they're just good people. So appreciate you guys.
Thanks for having us.
so much.
Love you, man. Thanks.
Bye
Take care
bye.
now.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thanks for listening to the Fee for Service Dentist Podcast. If you would like to share your fee for service story, please fill out our contact form at ffsdentistry.com. Also, Be sure to join our Fee-for-Service Dentistry Facebook group. For help starting your dental membership plan, visit dentalmembershipdirect.com and membershipmastercourse.com. Finally, for help with in-house financing, visit dentalfinancingdirect.com. And don't forget, your story is what you make of it. This is your name on the door and your reputation on the line. Thanks, everyone. We'll see you next time.
This has been a Rogue Media Network production.